Hello creatives, community, and kind folks. Welcome to RPG with DBJ. Today, we're just going to get into it. We're going to talk about the 5 wants, not needs, wants that ruin, after 40 plus years of tabletop role-playing game, that unfortunately ruined the tabletop role-playing experience. So this is a bit of a rant. This is my Monday. I love doing. I miss doing a little bit of ranting. So that people don't have to stay here too long, we're going to get directly into it. I'm just going to give it away. And after 40 plus years of tabletop role playing, I thought I would share my experiences. And unfortunately, this is a bit unconscious amongst the tabletop role-playing community. Good morning. Hello, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. We go live 6 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. Really appreciate you guys being here. And as a very, very small, dipping my toe into the publication world of tabletop role-playing games, I, as a budding game designer, have noticed many things, and I decided to put words to the things that we don't talk about. These are taboo things. Now, mind you, it does come up every once in a while, but we tend not to to categorize these things that we see in role-playing games. And unfortunately, this list is very generalized. We're going to get into the details of this, and I have 2 honorable mentions. Is a cycle that we keep repeating because it draws us in. It's like a gambler's high. It just draws us in. No matter how bad it gets, we do this over and over again. Now, there's no particular order to these, and there is some overlap. So we're going to get into the very first one, and it's optimization. Okay. I'm not talking about power gaming. I'm not talking about min-maxing. I'm talking about optimization. And this actually goes beyond, this idea of optimization goes beyond the simple fact of wanting to create the best character or something like that. This is because our community is filled with such brilliant, mathematically inclined individuals that sometimes people don't look at role-playing games as a world unto itself. Instead, they look at it as a problem to solve, and they will math the fun out of it. So this optimization thing is basically a quote, and I couldn't remember the quote until I want to share this with you now. This quote comes from the designers Soren Johnson and Sid Meier, and it comes from video gaming, and video gaming very much runs in parallel to their video game RPGs, where our community had to put the extra TT on the front of it to represent tabletop. But essentially, this quote, often attributed to game designers Soren Johnson and Sid Meier from the Civilization series, means that players naturally tend to find the most efficient way to play a game, sometimes to the detriment of their own enjoyment, by skipping over interesting mechanics or experiences. In other words, it's often players will optimize the fun out of the game. And optimization sometimes is the worst thing because it puts us in this loop where, as game designers, sometimes we want to design the game to circumvent, to interrupt that thought process, to want to optimize the fun out of it. So we want to add features into it to try to make it fun, and then the players that play the game, then mathematically speaking, will keep optimizing themselves away from those air quotes fun attributes. To continue to quote, it says, "Therefore, it's a designer's job to intentionally structure the game to encourage players to engage with all its intended aspects, even if it means subtly guiding them away from the most optimized but potentially less fun path." We will also go down here to what is it, Spokesman's review. the designers behind Civilization. Given the opportunity, players will optimize the fun out of the game. Therefore, one of the responsibilities of designers is to protect the players from themselves. Now, unfortunately, when it comes to tabletop role-playing games, unlike a video game, and we know this in the video game industry, that they will send updates, and they will there'll be updates. They will block exploits. They will mod and massage the game over time because they can do it electronically, or with a PDF. I guess you could update and whatnot. In collectible card gaming, they will age out cards. Magic the Gathering is a perfect example. They will age out cards. They will they will make a list of cards that are unplayable in certain arenas or professional tournaments and things like that. But in a tabletop role-playing game, once it's made, even with Errata, it's almost impossible to scrape back the potential loopholes or exploits or things like that. And it's not even about breaking the rules. It is the idea that there's only one way to successfully play the game. Dungeons and Dragons, it is not, I know, clickbaity, right? The thumbnail, clickbait, big giant Dungeons and Dragons logo on the thumbnail, right? But the point behind that, is, let's see if I might even share this out. The point behind doing that is because of having having this thumbnail, right? The point behind having this thumbnail is the fact that I've played lots of Dungeons and Dragons, and we all know that if you scraped away all the extraneous things, basically the way to exploit the game is to do the most damage and to suffer the least amount of damage, right? And that is optimization. And sometimes players will optimize the fun out of the game. They, so far as all the additions, this 5.5 edition and so on, we've seen exploration optimized out of the game. We've seen social interactions optimized out, and now we see other things. This is part of one of my my honorable mentions. Crafting rules. People want crafting rules, which basically undermines the idea of adventuring in the first place. We have, instant and continuous ability to perceive everything in the environment, which prevents which in and of itself prevents players from, what in the world? I've disappeared. There we go. Which prevents players from engaging in the world. There are so many things now that are an antithesis to the adventuring experience. No need to go out of your home if I can craft all the magic I want here. No need to poke and prod and be dangerous and drive my character like I stole it. Driving it dry and putting it away wet. Instead I have all of these extra things that keep me alive. You'll see that in one of my honorable mentions as well. I hear you too, Drew. Sarcasm, yeah. Yeah. But the thing is that we see even now there's this the idea that, okay, players want to do more damage, so to balance that out, we're just going to give things more hit points, which just extends the gameplay to make players want to optimize further to do, instead of, and we see in indie games that many independent games are designed for a specific style of gameplay. Sometimes gameplay that other players really don't feel, whether it is powered by the apocalypse and fate and many of these games that have the yes, no, if, and, or, but question. It's like, did you succeed? Did you pass, fail? No, it was yes, and if, and, or, no, but. Right? It's fuzzy. And some players don't like that fuzziness, but I would contend that the reason for the fuzziness is specifically to prevent the optimization. It is so that you must engage with the very elements of the game so that others, maybe that is a better way of doing it. Oops. It's specifically designed so that you can't optimize. We see this even in basic Dungeons and Dragons, our basic 6 stats, where a number of designers have specifically spread out the use of the stats. I think in Knave 2nd edition, charisma is the stat used for initiative. In Knave and Shadowdark, I believe wisdom is your perception stat, and it is used for ranged combat, you know, taking away that from dexterity being the power stat. I believe in Knave, intelligence is the exploration skill, if I'm statistic, if I'm not mistaken, and so on and so forth. So there's this cycle of optimization that players desire, game designers try to fight against, and it goes in this big circle where players either get frustrated because they can't optimize their way to a solution, or the game designer is caught in a loop of constantly trying to barricade, to corral the players into what they want the game to be, and the players are not listening. They're not playing the game as intended. What they're trying to do is math their way out of it. Now, I'm not saying that it's wrong to math your way out of a situation, because it's useful. It's extremely useful in life. I'm saying that you can optimize the fun out of a game, and we see this in the video game series. Now, me, I'm specifically an exploration hound, so for me, yeah, exploring lost places and the unknown environments and all that kind of stuff, I love that. But it's funny because some of our favorite intellectual properties, we love them, but they are not reinforced in the game, and players choose to play the game not in the method or the way that they see their favorite IP. They play it in a different way. They're like, let's go Nova. Every single encounter is let's go Nova. Yeah, me taking the good berries away so that you don't have to like worry about survival and worrying about resources and things. So let's get to number 2. Number 2 is Canon. All right. And again, this overlaps into things that are not tabletop role-playing game, but in the tabletop role-playing game arena, this, we don't talk about it, but it tends to ruin the game. And this is Canon. Okay. What I mean by Canon, I'm talking about information, mystery, backstory, answers, lore. It is sometimes it is so much. Now, again, unconsciously, just like the optimizers, the math heads, I guess the STEM field people that are in our tabletop role-playing community, this one, when it comes to Canon, involves our people who love to research, who love to study, who find histories and answers to questions. It is their epitome. This isn't about math. This is about language, and language. History is the thing I'm thinking. Archaeology, uncovering lost histories and things of that nature. And the people that love Canon fall into this category when it talks about ruining tabletop role-playing experiences. And what I mean by that is, yes, you can go to the extreme and make a whole game a mystery box, which would suck. But unfortunately, some of us have a desire to learn the answers to everything. We want canon, and we want more information. We want backstory. We want to know the answers to everything. And here's the problem with that. Those answers should come organically, or maybe we shouldn't have the answer at all. Maybe there shouldn't be an answer to where that ancient cursed sword came from. Maybe we shouldn't know what's at the edge of the map. Here they be dragons, right? How many times have we seen players look at a map and they ignore everything in the middle of the map because they're looking at the edges? They want to know what's under it, what's over it, what's on the edges of. They're ignoring what's in front of them. And sometimes canon, the information, the backstory can be a little bit too much. You know, what happened in a lost war? No one knows, and you're not supposed to know. There are people who have whole channels dedicated to George R.R. Martin's whole world of the Song of Ice and Fire and Westeros and House of the Dragon, and consider everything he's written as canon. No, it's unreliable narration. It's information passed on by people by word of mouth, by people who stories that are written by characters that have agendas. They have biases, they have prejudices, they have traumas. They misheard something, misrepresented something. They want to shape the world in the way that best fits their faction, their worldview. And then players take that as canon. We've seen this ruined with Lord of the Rings, Star Wars, Star Trek, and so Doctor Who, and so many other intellectual properties, to the point that sometimes players use canon as cannon, like the weapon, shooting a cannon with one end, cannonballs at people when they get something wrong. There's 2 suns, not 3. There's the people here are 5 inches taller than you said they normally are. And sometimes the cannon is used as a weapon, a way to make others feel that they're not fans of the property. You're not a real fan because you didn't watch the webisode series that came in 18 parts. They were 5 seconds each. The lore lawyers. I guess there's a rules lawyers, lore lawyers, Optima lawyers. I guess, I don't know. Yeah, there have been times when I've refused to play in games because somebody used the canon, the lore, as like a weapon, as a point of pride. And mind you, there's a time and place for that. There are forums that love to talk about the intellectual properties that we all love that make up our tabletop role-playing experience. There are literal historians about medieval societies from 16th century France and 9th century Norway and 14th century Japan and whatnot, and they will smack you upside the head with all the information they have, and you just sit there rolling your eyes like, fuck, all I want to do is just roll the fucking dice. Like, really? Do we need 45 minutes of this? Because we're playing a game. Because ostensibly, role-playing games are games. Now, they may not be 50-50, but they are games. And something that we don't really talk about too much. And again, as coming from the point of view of game designers, there's this weird and very tangential, ephemeral balance where we want to answer questions that players have about regions in a world, in this fantasy world. What's over that hill? What's over that mountain range? What's in the Underdark? What's across the ocean? Who are the pirates in the archipelago? Who are the people that live in the accursed desert? I had to put that in there, right? But at the same time, sometimes we don't want to answer all those questions. That's for you to answer. We can't give you everything. That's for you to answer. And when there's least amount of information, players can get upset and go, well, that doesn't answer my question suitably. Then if you give too much information, it's like, if I purchase the game and I want to run it, I want space to put my own thing in there. I understand the accursed desert doesn't have they never wrote down that there was a haven of shadowy assassins, but in my world there is. And sometimes there is this concept that the players will over-canonize the canon as if saying, because it was never written down, your introduction of this new element, your massaging of the information is not only just not welcome, it's wrong. I remember Forbidden Lands. I've never played it, but I have a huge interest in it. And yes, Forbidden Lands is very much embracing of the I really want to play it too. Yeah, Forbidden Lands does an excellent job of exploration, and the videos I've seen about Forbidden Lands, it's pretty excellent stuff. There's some really great stuff out there. Yeah, I want to play it too. And listen, exploration, I understand exploration sounds like moving away cobwebs and deep dungeons and things like that. I don't just mean that. Exploration is a giant umbrella of talking with people and questioning things and never quite knowing the correct answer, but getting really close to the target when it comes to culture and language and food and those elements. And even if the players, I don't know, get the Gondor, right? Is every single citizen there like lawful good because it's the city of goodness and brightness and stuff? No, man, there's got to be some underground. But you know, J.R.R. Tolkien didn't. He didn't write that there was a criminal underworld. So why would you put it in there? That doesn't make any sense. And you're like, wait a minute. And sometimes the over canoning of a thing can seem a little bit ridiculous, right? Like all the Hutts are whatever alien race Jabba the Hutt was. And it's like, no, how about they're just a whole bunch of different criminals that all look different? Like, they don't all have to be big fat worm people, right? It could be, we can have other things and other aspects. In the movies, the Force seems to only do like 5 different things and that's it. It's like, no, we can have different ideas. Well, you know what? We've seen anger from players, from those that love the lore so much that they even get mad at the creators themselves that modify or change or delete or massage or add new elements. Because Shy Squad says, do these lore canon freaks get mad even if you're just adding some new element that expands on existing universe, even if it totally fits within the setting? Sometimes that's true. I remember, this is pretty ridiculous. I remember when The Force Awakens, one of the 3 latest Star Wars movies that came out, and it was 30 years later, Harrison Ford shows up in a long coat. He had a long coat that went down by his like calves to his ankles. And people had the nerve to go, how come Han Solo's not wearing his traditional jacket? It's like, it's been 30 fucking years. Like, he didn't change his underwear? You don't expect him to wear something different? Now, I understand that's an extreme measure, right? But, even the people in the world itself that developed the canon itself probably have gotten most things wrong. It's my explanation for why the goblinoids of today don't have to be the evil monsters that everybody wants to destroy. Maybe they just are. Maybe it's prejudice and misinformation and I don't know, propaganda and whatnot. And sure, maybe now they're bestial because they keep getting mistreated, but there could be somebody that came along and went, wait, you think what we've been wrong this whole time? Sure. Okay, let's go into number 3, which are options. At a certain point in games, yes, people flipped out with the books, even to go so far as the second series, the House of the Dragon series. It's in its 2 seasons have shown up with House of the Dragon. Now, the TV show House of the Dragon is based on a book called Fire and Blood, or is it Blood and Fire? Anyway, it is a history book of what happened before the Song of Ice and Fire. It is a history book, and much of it doesn't even have character voices. It is, on this date this thing happened, during this time these things happened, and it is written from characters in the world who went back, and some of them may have been there, some of them were third-hand notations, some were put together by the maesters. The maesters are like the sages of that world. It is the Book of Fire and Blood is written completely by unreliable narrators, the whole book. And there are even characters that don't have any voice, so it's not like character A said this, character B said that. No, it's like, you know, we have it on good account that so and so. And there are people, when the show aired, they were pissed off. They were like, you broke canon. There is no canon. It's a history book of people who probably weren't there, and if they were there, they had their own agendas, and people still flipped out. It's weird how that is. Even Star Wars specifically says, in a galaxy far, far away, long time ago in a galaxy far, far away, which means, is this exactly accurate? I don't know, but this is the story that we're going to tell anyway, right? So we don't really know. And it literally starts out as, Star Wars has started out as a pictogram of possible things that could have happened way back when. You know? Hell, even the movie 300 was narrated by a guy who was like, hey everybody, this thing is happening. Did it really happen that way? Well, it could have. Maybe we're visually watching what the narrator, which was one of the 300 soldiers, maybe it's from his point of view. Maybe he's like boosting his fellow soldiers up a little bit, making it seem, well, it wasn't just a big dude, he was a giant. They weren't just strange looking, they were mutants. They weren't just alchemists, they were wizards, right? And yeah, even that movie, which I love the movie. I mean, 300 is an excellent movie, but you know, is this really historical? No, it's the historical accounting of a guy who's trying to recruit other troops to hold off the Xerxes and his Persian army and all this kind of stuff, right? And that's where it comes from. So let's go with options, because this is going to take us too long, and I want to get to the honorable mentions too. Options. This is kind of short. Players, we players love ourselves some options, don't we? Options, player options, and monsters. Two big sellers. The super sexy stuff. And at a certain point, there gets to the point where there are so many options that there really isn't any option at all. I know you guys have heard of this idea that in supermarkets, sometimes supermarkets do not want to carry every brand of something, like every type of tomato sauce or cereal or potato chip or cookie or mustard or whatever. Some supermarkets don't want to do that because they know that the more options people have, the more analysis paralysis they have. And at a certain point, there really isn't a difference when if you were to put every brand of mustard in a line, yes, at the extreme ends, you're going to get a huge difference. But all that bullshit in the middle, is it really different enough for you to warrant having to worry yourself over it? No, not really. Yeah, not really. At a certain point, there becomes, I know in Dungeons and Dragons, as an example, there are multiple cat feline options. There are multiple avian player options. There's multiple big beefy player character options. You know, I want to play an orc, half hobgoblin, half giant, mule, whatever, MUL from Dark Sun. I want to play all the. Okay, you just want to play a big beefy dude. Okay, you want to play somebody with a lot of muscle. I mean, at a certain point, the options aren't really options any longer. it's just a different brand of butter spread over the same toast. Unreliable narrators, just like in real life, hardly anything that may have happened in Northern Europe over 1,000 years ago is backed up by ironclad evidence. Exactly. And now there may be people who consider themselves experts, and you may even prefer the word of one expert over another. But when another individual, another historian finds more evidence that controverts what you have to say, it's basically a big shrug. Of course there's going to be exceptions. But there's exceptions all over the world about everything. Okay, there's an exception. Except Potter. There's plenty of clay-bound evidence that they made plenty of pots. Yeah. Bad example. Yeah, talking about the mustard. I know. I pull things out of my ass. Sometimes they should go back up in there, right? But I think you guys get the point. Sometimes there are so many options that what ends up happening is that the game master, dungeon master, storyteller, narrator, administrator, referee, flame tender ends up having to go, you know what? No, you can't have that option. And instead of the players going, yeah, okay, I get it. They get, fold arms, poke out potty lip. You don't want me to have fun. No, it's choice option. It's choice paralysis. Yeah, I can't police 38 different character options, and I don't want to, nor should I have to police 38 character options. Can we keep the options down to things that we all can relate to and remember without someone finding some rare book printed by some third-party publisher that, like myself, that didn't play test it and didn't forego? And even if it's a good idea, maybe the game master doesn't want it in their world. So sometimes, subclasses, oh my God, the glut of subclasses that exist out there, it's crazy. True historians never claim to know the absolute truth. Just like scientists, a true expert will narrow it down to 3 to 5 most likely possibilities of what actually happened. Scientists will almost never claim 100% of anything. Most scientists, sorry, I gotta drink something. Most scientists will place a percentage of possibility, and we as human beings get mad at those scientists that we're like, well, you can't promise 100%. It's like, no. Deadman says, example, St. Patrick was never a part of the Catholic Church until almost 150 years after his death. He was simply a blacksmith that hated rats and wanted to eliminate all of them in Ireland. Right, and sometimes sometimes we mythologize people. Sometimes it is it's the idea of narrowing down something. So it's not just a mistake. It's a little complicated to explain it. So then we just simplify the explanation, and it's not being done to deceive anyone. It's just easier to explain it this way, right? That happens a lot. And also, yeah, I saw what you said. Yeah, and Demi is absolutely right. Like, I didn't know that fact, but that doesn't mean it doesn't mean I'm gonna throw a book down and stomp off because I was like, St. Patrick and the rats and playing the flute and getting the rats out of the city and blah blah blah, right? There's no need to get mad at that. It's just like, oh, well, whatever. All right. Number 4, balance. We hear this so much in tabletop role-playing games. People want balance. They need balance. They need balance, balance, balance. And at a certain point, balance removes the intentions of the players to make good decisions. Okay? And what I mean by that is, in a video game, for the most part, many video games have levels balanced out for the capabilities of the player playing at that particular space and time. But in a role-playing game, which doesn't have to parallel a video game, we can have anything. We can have a half dozen kobolds and an ancient dragon show up at the exact same time. Maybe balance isn't necessary. Maybe it's called making clear and dangerous and choices. Right? Maybe that's what we need to have for players to do. I saw an article that talked about game balance is actually in the hands of the players, not the game master. That the players choose or should choose when to engage with dangerous things that could kill their character. Now, role-playing wise, would an ancient dragon care about a group of third-level players? Probably not. An ancient dragon probably doesn't even see them. Like a human being going out of their way, walking down the street and seeing an anthill. Kids and a magnifying glass, sure, they're going to pay attention to anthill. A regular person riding their bike, they could care less. They're just going to fly overhead, whatever. Okay? Now, Anon says people want fairness, not balance. But like many desires, they get things mixed up. Exactly. Fairness, and even life isn't fair. Fairness is me as a game master not forcing you to roll initiative against that ancient dragon, right? Even though you're a third level party. I could just describe the gang of trolls smashing their way through the woods. It's up to you how you handle that, right? And the fairness that's how dice become fair. That's how the rules, how the game system works, because there's randomization, right? How good am I at sneaking and being strong and figuring things out and being charismatic? That's where the dice come in. But the fairness comes in where, and I'm going to add something to your comment there, Anon. I'm going to add effectiveness. Okay, so many games, I'm going to pick on you, Dungeons and Dragons, have they use certain vectors to describe success and failure. Okay, and what I mean by that is it's measured by how much damage you basically do to monsters. So players think balance is we should all equally do the same amount of damage to monsters. Because if we're not doing damage to monsters, then how effective are we? A good game and a game master that runs a game relatively well will allow players to share the spotlight, which is where the balance comes from. And I think sometimes we misinterpret balance by balancing our players amongst each other, not even necessarily the game world. It's, wow, the barbarian and the paladin do more damage than my wizard or cleric or something like that. Therefore, this game is unfair. And that may not necessarily be true. What's actually happening is, how is the world, what elements of the world can the players engage with that allows them to feel like they are having an effect in the game? So something could be introduced in the world, such as like my bard is going to charm those trolls or distract them to get them to come down the narrow valley, and then someone else is going to drop boulders on top of them or something like that. And with me throwing in my 2 cents about using exploration in the environment and things of that nature, when there are no rules for those things, sometimes players want the rules, they want to engage in the rules, and if the rules are not set specifically, for example, there really aren't any rules for causing a landslide to crush those damn trolls and trap them. But narratively, there may be. And because there's no rules for that, but there is a rule for getting the 7th level, and I get to have this other capability that allows me to add another 38 points of damage, then some players will want to, and that's where we go back up to optimization and options, right? And going back to this balance issue. And I think balance is a bit of an illusion. I do agree with you. Fairness is very much what it is, what people are looking for. Our last one is permission. And I find this one to be the oddest one of them all. And despite the fact that nearly every tabletop role-playing game has placed these words or words similar to this somewhere in the beginning of their book or close to the rules of the game after you've already read through the fiction and whatnot, and it'll say something to this effect: anything in the game that ruins your enjoyment or extends play or is unwanted or you have a hard time in integrating with, you can remove it from the game. Anything you don't like, you can remove. Now, first of all, having it printed in the book literally gives most game masters a permission to modify the game itself. That's a rule in the book that allows them to mod the rules in the book to tell the player, hey, I'm modding this rule, which doesn't make the game master unfair. It means that they have the ability to change it. House ruling, right? The other part of that is players crave permission for some reason to change things in their own game that they own. Nobody knows what you're doing in the privacy of your own home unless you're live streaming your whole life. There are no RPG police. I mean, sure. Are there collectible card game police? Sure. But role-playing, we haven't gotten to that level yet. It's not a complete totalitarian regime yet. Maybe we might be heading there. But in getting past for us to get past the sarcasm, no, there are no RPG police, and you can play the game any way you want to, even if it's the way I dislike. As a matter of fact, there are plenty of people playing games that I dislike on an ethical and moral level. There are people playing role-playing games that I dislike. But here's the thing: I never had the ability to change their mindset anyway. So the fact that they're playing the game that I love wouldn't matter anyway. Whether I knew it or not, they'd be playing it that way. And the thing is that no one needs permission to do or change or modify or add or subtract. And there seems to be this over propensity to like ask the designers and ask the gatekeepers, can you, should you, it's unfair that, and blah blah blah. No, you don't need you've never needed permission ever. If you own something to change it, people have been modifying their cars and their homes and their clothing and their food recipes forever. We don't have, I mean, sure, is there a specific way to cook a steak that is the optimal way? Yes, and I guarantee you there's 1,000 of them out there. Oh, you're supposed to marinate it in salt and butter. Hey, when you cook it, you're supposed to do high heat first and then flip it in 2 minutes and flip it over. There's so many different ways of making recipes, and tabletop role-playing games are that way. It almost feels like sometimes the game designers almost need to go out of their way to remind players you don't need permission from me, but then they give permission anyway. And then these are 2 honorable mentions before we get out of here. Invisible immortality and personal exploits. Okay, invisible immortality. This is a big one. Some games, it takes a while to make a character. In ye olden days, in the OSR, and I guess we would call this the new SR, some games can be literally written on a 3x5 card. In the span it took your character to die, you could make a new character that is found trapped in a cage somewhere or tied up with rope that gets to join the party in the next 5 minutes after you typed in BRB for be right back, stepping away from the screen to go get some snacks and a drink and return back to the online table while you're playing with your friends. But sometimes it takes forever to make a character. Actually, there are game police, and if you play the game wrong, you'll be banned, defamed, and harassed online. Listen, there's a lot of gatekeepers out there. There's a lot of gatekeepers. And listen, I'm not defending. Okay, not defending. Okay. There are people who intrinsically I have a moral and ethical antithesis to that exists in the world. There are people who are playing role-playing games that want to play in fictional worlds that reinforce all kinds of prejudices. The problem is that has always happened, and I'm not one to stop them, not because that I should or shouldn't. The fact of the matter is I wouldn't be able to anyway. And we outside of role-playing games, we see Star Wars gatekeepers, we see Lord of the Rings gatekeepers, Star Trek gatekeepers, and whatnot. Some of those people call for, I don't know, death threats to actors and actresses and directors and writers and things like that. And I'm going, they ruined my childhood, really? Because it seems a little paper thin for something as simple as like a new TV show or a movie to ruin your childhood. Here's an idea: never watch that thing again. That's you can literally ignore it, right? And same thing with role-playing games. Like, I've grown up with Dungeons and Dragons. That dragon ampersand, the D&D logo, the idea of armor class and hit points and all that kind of stuff. Has the corporate overlords ruined it, the game? Sure. Yeah, sure. They got the brand and they came in and they're trying to make money. Sure. Would I call for death threats with people and think, no, it's called a corporation. It's a business. That has nothing, actually, let me leave this up here. That has nothing to do with my enjoyment of the games that I like. Now, personally, having been involved in games that don't give money to Wizards of the Coast and Hasbro and Level Up 5th Edition, because I was part of it, would I prefer to play a game like that or Shadow Dark or something like that? Yeah, because Knave and some of the other games, Cosmere, the new Cosmere game with Brandon Sanderson, would I prefer to play those games? Sure. Yeah, sure. Will I go back to Dungeons and Dragons? Probably. Pull out the old books and the dice and all that kind of stuff. Do I make references to it? Of course. Yeah, no corporation is going to gatekeep, my enjoyment of the thing I like or don't like. I think sometimes we fear being left out. So invisible immortality is the idea that my game is dangerous and lethal and requires a deft hand to play. But I also want guardrails so that the longer it takes me to make my character, the longer there's almost like a ratio of the longer it takes for me to make my character, the longer my character should survive in the game. And by the way, you guys have never played Call of Cthulhu. And so over time, Dungeons and Dragons and some other games have started to add guardrails. Basically, well, you're not dead at 0, you're dead at -10. No, you're dead at negative your constitution score. No, you're dead at negative half your hit points. No, we're going to give you some death saves. No, we're going to add in magic. No, as long as someone comes over and stabilizes you. No, well, actually, you can have an option to jump up with like 1 hit point. Well, and after a certain, and you start stacking these guardrails up, and eventually you're bowling with the little the things that prevent you, the little gutter rails, and it's like, yeah, this game is dangerous. Is it really? Is it really? He says, I used to assume that death threats against creators were just a superlative or hyperbole and make them even further when they ran out of insults. There's some people who take that serious. And it's like, why would you even want to? Like, why even let those kind of words get out of your mouth? Like, I understand to me, it's strange that a grown person, and some of these people are not grown, they're adolescents, right? Yeah, right, Drew? Right. There's some adolescents that say things like they they'll tell their parents, I hate you, and things like that, and you're like, you're a kid. That's cruel, but you're a kid. Grown folks that call for like death threats because of like comic books and action movies and fantasy novels and things like that are pretty immature. And to allow your emotions to get to the point where you're literally taking the time to type that out, like, that's just weird to me. And I don't, I grew up at a time where social media wasn't a thing. So to me, expressing my emotions for everybody else to see, like writing down everything I think and feel on Post-it notes and sticking it everywhere for people to walk by and see it, it's just bizarre to me. Hey, now says, I'm talking about how KOTLC won't play L5R because... Oh, Knights of Last Call won't play L5R because doing so could be seen as problematic. I heard him say, for those who don't know, if you think I go on forever, you need to watch the 2 and 3 hour live streams from Knights of Last Call, where Derek, the host of the show, of his channel, was saying like he didn't want to play Legend of Five Rings as a live play for people to see because it could be seen as problematic. Not because he didn't think he would enjoy the game, but other people would come down on him because Legend of the Five Rings is a fictional fantasy version of the Asian theater, Japan and China and Mongolia and things like that. It's a fantasy hodgepodge of different eras of that period of time. It's completely fantasy. Rokugan. Yeah, if your character didn't die, have you truly played them at all? I don't know. Death is boring. Death is like, Death is overrated in role-playing games because there's nothing. Great, my character died. Now what? Twiddle thumbs, sit on the sidelines. I think what people want is to engage in the world in a different way, and I'm just surprised we haven't come up with something better than death as the answer to failure. Well, no, I'm sorry. There are plenty of games that don't have death in the game, but you feel like your character died anyway, right? I bring up Tales from the Loop and Things from the Flood as an example. We're playing adolescents that can't die. yeah, exactly, right? Yeah. Yep, that's exactly why. Yeah, why would you even want to? Because you never grew up and you've gotten to the point where you feel like calling people a-holes and MFs just isn't enough to win a flame war anymore. So you go death threat. Yeah, and even worse, right? And our community, our tabletop role-playing community used to be the safe spot. It used to be. It was a place where it was like, bring us your geeks, your unwanted, your socially awkward people. Come to us. We are your group. Used to be that way. Yeah. And a lot of death threats are actually death suggestions, which are meaningfully different on the more legal level. all right, threader. Navigate that thread. Yeah, see, this is just an assumed assumption of deletion by yourself by an outside third party of which I have no relationship with. You know the commercials where someone talks real fast about public. Yeah, add one of those to a comment. I wish you were, and then all of a sudden they just fill it in the black bottom. But yeah, Invisible Immortality, games that are supposed to be lethal and aren't, and portraying them as such. And I personally think Invisible Immortality comes from our inability as human beings to perceive probabilities. So many superheroic role-playing games, with Dungeons and Dragons being one of them, the propensity is that you will have more successes than failures. And that presumption of more successes than failures comes across to us psychologically as always succeeding, never failing. So that when failure does happen in Dungeons and Dragons, as opposed to many of the more lethal OSR games, people feel something's wrong with the game, right? Or the game sucks because how could I have failed? I made 9 rolls today. On my 10th roll, I failed. There's something wrong with my character, the game, my build. I need the number hunt. I need the mod hunt, because that would be like going to a casino, and every time you put a coin or you slide your card or whatever in the casino, and you pull the handle, and everyone is winning, and you happen to be the one person that doesn't get anything. Then you're like, this place is stupid. I don't want to be here, because despite the fact that maybe the win percentage is 72%, right? And you happen to fall into the 28th percentile of people who are losing, but it feels like I'm the only loser, everyone else is winning. In more lethal games, like OSR style low modifier games, the probabilities are against you. That for the most part you will lose, you will fail rolls, except for the optimal times that you've planned on to gain success. And I think that's it. Not only could it have been an accident, I think it's also incorporated in the OSR and new SR of today, that no, your success is based on your capabilities, of your creativity, of you exploiting the fuzzy rules, not button mashing to gain success. The last one is personal exploits. And this is honorable mention for ways people ruin the game. Personal exploits are things, to me, that, and mind you, my opinion, but this is over 40 plus years, that a single player engages with in a game that's not solo play. So personal, and what I mean by exploits, these are things that benefit one player on their own by themselves, that really other players don't really have any access to. The game master doesn't have the ability to modify, and sometimes the players feel like, well, if I can't use this personal exploit even though it's in the game's unfair. An example would be an example that came up recently are crafting rules. Every fantasy game, everywhere, all the time, has people crave crafting rules. They beg for crafting rules. They wonder where the crafting rules are. My personal opinion is the best crafting rules ruin the game. And here's why, okay? Let's assume every character is rated from 1 to 10, and 10 is your average. Let's say 10. So whatever points or system or numbers, I don't care, it adds up to 10, and everyone's balanced out to 10. Crafting rules, does that mean a player on their own time can be a number 12 or 13 because they're using the crafting rules where everyone else doesn't get a chance to use those same exact rules? Or the opposite would be, my character is at a 6 or 7 where everyone else's character is at 10, unless I use the crafting rules, in which case everyone else is adventuring, they're going out to gain stuff, whereas I've got to stay home to craft to get myself up to 10, while the other players are already at 10 and they're going out and getting into 10 plus, right? There's other personal exploits are like piloting rules, hacking rules, modifying technological science fiction, technological equipment rules. These are, I don't know, hell, you could go for dreamscaping rules. My character can go into the dreamscape and no one else can, or astral project or something. These are things that like are personal exploits. My character can do a thing that no one else can do, and not only that, nobody else gets to be involved in that thing. And crafting rules also are the antithesis of adventure. So do you go out to the dangerous locations in the adventuring world, whether it's fantasy or modern or science fiction, to gain a thing, to engage with the world with your other fellow player characters, or do you want to stay home and build a wand, right? It's literally the antithesis of adventure and personal exploits, despite the fact that people beg for them. I want to build, they have new Bastion rules. And I'm like, yeah, but no one plays that. I'm not saying that they can't play it. I'm saying no one plays it because it's so personal. It's a personal exploit. And it's very difficult to get players to understand that the fun that you're having is a personal thing that doesn't involve other people, and that most games are collaborative at a minimum level, that there's other people at the game. It's like going shopping. You know how many times people talked about going shopping? It's the same thing. Going shopping is one of the things that game masters, dungeon masters, admins, referees, flame tenders, wardens, storytellers hate. And the reason for that is it's very personal. Doesn't move the story. It's fun for the player, sure, but it's not engaging for the game master. There's no tension. There's no rising action. There's limited ability to drop more information and story hooks for you. Sometimes even when you drop the story hooks, they're ignoring it because they want to go shopping again. You know what I mean? And it's like, there's a fight happening at the hot dog cart. I don't care. I'm going over to the jewelry store in the mall, right? It's like you see a couple fighting, and the young lady sobs sitting down on the bench as the guy storms out to go to his car inside the mall, the 80s mall, and he's like, I'm heading over to JCPenney's or whatever, right? It's the whole thing. So anyway, thank you very much for letting me rant. Letting me rant about the five wants that ruin the game. Yeah, we all want these things, but clearly over 40 plus years of tabletop role-playing games that I've experienced, that we want too much of these things, and it turns into a cycle of ruining the game. The optimization of the game that ruins the fun, that literally optimizing the fun out of the game because people want to math their way out of to solve the problem. Hey, I want to optimize my character to do the most damage because that's how you win in Dungeons and Dragons. Great, but did you talk to a hidden race of people that lived on the island and engage with them and introduce them back to society? Did you return the magical items that were stolen from the noble family that they wanted to put back into the museum, or were going to be used as a gift in a coronation? No. I just want to win. I want to do the most to do the thing. I'm going to level dip three levels in the rogue, and I'm going to get a level of fighter because it gives me the extra action. And I'm going to, okay, but did you have fun? Helping your other player reunite with their long lost cousin? And say, man, Canon, over canonizing a thing. Not understanding that the Mournlands in Eberron and what happened in the Mournlands shouldn't be answered. Right? Sometimes there shouldn't be an answer for why the apocalypse happened, or why the big bad is in power, or why the magic item is cursed, or why there are empty spaces in a world like in Greyhawk, and you're like, well, there shouldn't be a dungeon here between here and there. Well, why shouldn't there be? Too many options that ruin the game. Not because they aren't fun initially for players, but at a certain point, we go down the cyclical nature of the game master, dungeon master telling you no. And who wants to start a game out by saying no to your players? No, you can't have that. No, you can't use that. No, you can't. And at a certain point, players start folding their arms and like, well, no, the whole point, there's a point to this. And sometimes it's just simple. Sometimes it's simply because the person running the game doesn't have the bandwidth to police everything. Sometimes you're like, look, I own 2 books. I've got both on PDF. That's what we're using. Why? Because I don't want all those options. Balance. How about making better choices, having the freedom to make the game fair? and adjudicate fairly, and then engage with the world as if you were there, rather than going like, well, we shouldn't be fighting monsters that are too powerful or less powerful than us. It should be balanced. I should be able to walk up to every monster and roll initiative and just attack it. Well, unless you agreed to do that, no, it's a role-playing game. If you want to do that, there are video games that do that thing very well. Permission. You don't need permission. This is a gimme. The permission kind of doesn't fit on this list, kind of. But permission is one of those things where it's like, yeah, all these other things above, hell, you don't even need to listen to me. As long as if it's your game, you can do whatever the hell you want. Needing permission from an actual authority is not needed. While neither are acceptable, there's a big difference between saying something like, I hope you get cancer, versus I will take personal action to harm you because of what you did. Ironically, people ask me on Reddit with wellness checks. Ironically, feels like, I don't know. Yeah, Reddit, the Reddit rabbit hole. Oof. But here are my two honorable mentions. Like I said before, invisible immortality and personal exploits. You know, if you want to play a game where you can't die, how about we just say it up front and just say, listen, in this game you can't die. Like, I know it's Dungeons and Dragons, but how about we just remove that from the game and then go on from there, right? How about we come up with something else, right? Rather than us pretending like death is on the board, we get rid of it and then we replace it with something else. How about your character is captured, taken out, banished, exiled, wounded? We have a wound chart. Maybe they lose something important to them. They using a TV movie type of thing. They disappear from action only to return later. They're sent home somewhere. They are mysteriously or arcanely, they disappear. They lose hope and they go back home. You can't use the character for 3 more sessions or whatever. Things like that. But the idea that they're actually... But the guardrailing thing, I think, is pretty ridiculous. With like, oh, we're going to let you go negative. We're going to have death saves. We're going to let you get stabilized. We're going to have a bunch of very easy to earn spell systems to ensure that you don't die. And yet we're going to claim that the game is lethal. And now it could be brutal without being lethal, where characters have access to things. And lastly, access to things that save their character from death and destruction. And then last thing is personal exploits. I know we love ourselves. We love ourselves some crafting rules and hacking rules and bastion stronghold rules and things like that. But we need to think about how we're using them in the game. We demand these things. I want to be the pilot in the sci-fi game. Okay, great. What does everybody else get to do? I want to create a stronghold for my character. Okay, if the adventure is leaving home and you stay there, what adventures are we telling? And then lastly, sometimes with these personal exploit things, we don't get a lot of information on how to use them. Okay, the characters create a stronghold. Great. Now what do? What are the adventures or conflicts? Maybe those aren't called adventures. What are their heroine's labyrinth stories that we tell from being in our stronghold, rather than the hero's journey stories that we tell when going out into the dungeon, right? Exploring the unknown. What does that game look like when my 3rd to 12th level character is protecting their bastion or their stronghold or their fort or their keep or wizard's tower? What does that game look like? Now, there are games that do that. Ars Magica is an example of a game of playing wizards that have a wizard's covenant. And what does that game look like? There are games that do that, but maybe you want to play those games. So anyway, got a chance to rant a little bit. Didn't solve anything, but I will say that over a long period of time, I see these things happen and they come in cycles. and people want lots of things, and I see this, especially the part about the optimization part and the Canon and things. When I see like Draw Steel and Tales of the Valiant, the MCDM game, and the Black Flag game, Tales of the Valiant, and Level Up 5th Edition, and so many other games, and plenty of the indie games and the clone games, the D20 clone games and things like that. And I see people like, what are crafting rules like? What the crafting rules are like? What are crafting rules like? I'm going, yeah, but what? But then what do you do with that? Do you I don't know. It's just weird. I had a level 14 wizard in 3.5e, got every creation talent in the book. It was funny. Yeah. Listen, on a personal note, it's fun to do that. But as a game master, really all you're setting yourself up is failure, because either your players are going to exploit the crafting rules, and then you have to deal with that fact. You're going to deal with balance issues. My fighter doesn't get to craft things. Why does the wizard get to craft a thing that I don't get? Or you take away someone's fun. Hey, my wizard has the ability to craft things, and I don't get a chance to craft. This game sucks. So, and then of course it goes into these other things. The optimization. Well, why wouldn't my wizard craft things if I have the ability to craft things? Why would I put myself in danger? Why wouldn't I just craft my magic items instead of going into deep, dark, unknown places where I shouldn't be there to take other people's stuff? Things like that. And then of course we got a lot of options, the canon of permissions. So just wanted to share that with you guys. Thank you very much for being part of the show. Thank you very much. Before we get out of here, I'm going to flash up some things. I normally don't do the like, share, subscribe, but I'm going to do a little montage of these because I think they're kind of fun. Here's one. And here's another one. But we'll leave you with this one. Thank you very much, guys. Have a great day. Thank you very much for being part of the show. I really appreciate it. We'll see you tomorrow. Tomorrow we're going to do a world tour of A Dead Man's Guide to Dragon Grin. It'll be absolute tabletop Tuesdays, and some of the things that we got in there. You're very welcome. Yeah. I like that. First one needs a bit of work. I agree with you. Yeah. You used them once till the point the other nagged the DM. They had too much gold and less magic items. Yeah. Hey, here's all this gold. Nothing to do with it, right? Yeah. Yeah. Oh man. Anyway, guys, have a great one. I'll see you guys later. Peace and tranquility. Bye.